Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tip of the Ice-Burgh podcast, your home for Pittsburgh Penguins news and analysis. You can find us on YouTube at Tip of the Ice-Burgh, as well as full episodes at Nick Belsky on YouTube as well, or you can catch us anywhere you get your podcast from. I'm your host, Nick Belsky, riding solo for Season 7, Episode 11 of the Tip of the Ice-Burgh, and we got plenty to discuss as the Penguins finished up their pre-Sweden schedule on Sunday afternoon, but unfortunately it was not in a positive manner as the Penguins are apparently slumping as they head into the Global Series this week, losing 4 of their last 5 games, including being 0-1-1 this weekend. They lost 2-1 in the shootout to New Jersey on Saturday, and I've made my opinions on the shootout pretty clear, both on this platform and on X as well, and I don't need to repeat it every single time and get on a soapbox every single time the Penguins lose in what I like to call fake hockey, but, that is what it is. It's a game at Prudential Center in the afternoon on the weekend, which typically ends in a 2-1 game either way. Whether it's the Devils or the Penguins, it's always low scoring no matter how good either team is at putting the biscuit in the basket. It seems like that particular set of circumstances, when the sun is up at Prudential Center on a weekend, neither team can find the back of the net. And that was the case on Saturday, and it ended up costing the Penguins a standings point. And then they lose 3-2 against the LA Kings on Sunday. And the biggest storyline of the week on the ice. We'll get to the biggest storyline of the week off the ice, which is wild that it actually happened. But the biggest storyline on the ice is the much anticipated NHL debut of Sergei Murashov. This is a player that from the moment he stepped foot, surprisingly, on North American soil last summer, everybody was excited about him. I don't think anybody expected what we've seen in the 15 months since. I mean, he absolutely dominated the East Coast League last year. He was extremely good at the American Hockey League level. He surprised everybody by continuing that and being probably, if not the best, one of the best goaltenders at Penguins training camp this year. And they said, you know what? We're still going to start you out at the American Hockey League. You've been very good, and being that good has earned you the right to be the guy in the AHL, the number one goaltender for the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. And how did he respond? Just by being the goaltender of the month in October. So highly anticipated feels like an understatement when it comes to Sergei Murashov. He goes out yesterday, makes 24 saves on 27 shots, and I think all in all, had himself a pretty solid debut. It was in line with, I think, what everybody expected. Yes, it would have been great to see him come in and get a win in his debut. It would have been great to see him come in and absolutely shut down a talented Kings roster. Unfortunately, he was hung out to dry a little bit, and a couple of bad bounces happened. It's hockey. It happens. Just like we can't be upset too much that the Penguins have lost 4 of 5 because it's an 82-game season. You don't expect a team to win every single game. You don't expect them to go 70-12. You don't expect them to go 60-22. You don't expect a goaltender to make his NHL debut at 21 years old, the youngest goaltender in the league this year, to come in and just be able to be dominant in the world's best or highest level in the world at this sport. But I thought that he played well. I do. And yes, would it have been nice to see him make a 10-bell save on Kevin Fiala, keep the Penguins within, an opportunity to take the lead in the third? It would have been great. But here's the thing. He had already made about 3 or 4 10-bell saves to keep them in it at that point anyway. So I think when you look at Sergei Murashov's debut, you look at it and you say, listen, if you were excited about this kid before, nothing in that loss should have changed your mind. And if it did, I'm just gonna say something that I think a lot of people sometimes need to hear. Relax. It's a long season. He's 21. It's going to be a long career for Sergei Murashov. Just because he lost his first game to the LA Kings does not mean anything, doesn't forecast anything for the future of his career, other than the fact that, hey, he looks like he can hold his own at this level. In fact, I wish I could remember the Twitter account that posted it, because I like to give credit when I see somebody make a really nice post on X. especially when it's a connection from a past Penguin to a current Penguin. I love that kind of stuff. Inject it right into my veins. Sergei Murashov, not the only prodigious goaltender in Penguins history to lose their debut to the LA Kings. That was also Marc-Andre Fleury in 2003, which is wild to say. I mean, I won't go too long on this tangent, but the fact that we just celebrated the retirement of a goaltender who debuted in 2003, it blows my mind a little bit, but I digress. The fact is, Sergei Murashov, impressive in his debut, excited to see what he's going to be able to do in one of the 2 games I'd imagine he gets over in Sweden. Now, here's the thing about the Penguins' slump. We'll call it that. 4 of 5 is a slump. It's not a extended. Let's hope it doesn't get to that point, but it is a little bit of a slump. But the thing about it is, they're still playing good hockey. They're still right there in a lot of these games. 3 of those 4 losses are by 1 goal. One of them, of course, being in the shootout, aka fake hockey. But when you look at these losses, in Toronto, they dominated. Probably the best 40 minutes of hockey we've seen in years from the Penguins. Dominated through the first 3. And then they crumpled in the third period, which we later found out was on the back of an injured Tristan Jarry who's trying to play through something. They dominated most of the game in New Jersey, just weren't able to put the puck away, weren't able to put the game away, weren't able to put the Devils away, but they absolutely boat raced the Devils up and down the ice. They just couldn't finish. And I thought they had a good back and forth against a good Kings team. I mean, you look at their season series, which has now come to a close. 4-2 win for Pittsburgh on the road, 3-2 win for the Kings on the road. Those 2 teams playing at a very similar level. And the Kings are a team that have expectations of making the playoffs, probably running into the Edmonton Oilers for what seems like the 20th straight year, and seeing if they can come up past that challenge. But if they do, they're a team that a lot of people could expect to see go deep into the playoffs. The Pens are on that level at the moment, and that's something that is complete 180 from what we expected at the beginning of the season. So they're still playing good hockey despite the results not being there. But I think one of the biggest reasons that the results aren't necessarily there right now is that it's starting to feel like these injuries are catching up to the Penguins. It's not just quantity, because there are a lot of players, and the list seems to be growing, maybe multiplying by the game. It's not only that there's a lot of players on this list, it's the quality of players on this list. 3 of the people on the IR at the current moment, you expect to be top 6 forwards at some point this season, if not to close out the season if the team was fully healthy. Rickard Rakell, who had a 30-goal season last year, a career high in points, and once again was looking to be dominant alongside Sidney Crosby. 8 points in 9 games. He goes down with an injury. Justin Brazeau was off to the best start of his entire career and seemed to find a little bit of magic, a little bit of lightning in a bottle alongside of Evgeny Malkin and Anthony Mantha. Now, Malkin and Mantha have continued that. They've both been very good since. Still, it stinks for Justin Brazeau, who finally found a spot where he could flourish, that he's going to be out for a longer extended period of time. So you're losing a guy that was one of your best contributors, one of your best producers during that hot start. And then let's not forget, we have yet to see Rutger McGroarty missing the early portion of the season, not just at the NHL level, but missing it at the AHL level. Now he's going to have to build his way back up, because at the end of last season, when he got injured, when he took that shot off the foot, I can't remember if it was a slap shot or I think it was a slap shot. When he blocked a shot on the penalty kill, which ended his season, we all said, all right, that's unfortunate. But the kid showed something. The kid showed that he can be a top 6 winger at the NHL level. And we expected him to pick up where he left off at the beginning of this season. Well, deals with an injury, is dealt an injury during the offseason, and he is yet to play in the NHL this season. So you're missing 3 top 6 forwards. And I think not more importantly, because there's nothing more important than adding these top 6 guys back. But I think another big factor that a lot of people are just kind of brushing off, you're missing more of your depth. Philip Hollander was off to a phenomenal start. I haven't had a chance to really talk about this, but man, you feel for Philip Hollander. They found a blood clot in his leg. He's out minimum of 3 months, right before the Sweden games as well, which I understand is not the end-all be-all for anybody, right? The big picture is the season at large. But for these Swedish guys, Rickard Rakell, who's fortunately going to at the very least be able to be with the team on the trip, but still, it's not the same as getting to play in your home country. Philip Hollander, who went over to the Swedish Hockey League and dominated last year and earned his way back to North America, back to the NHL, and earned his way into an everyday spot, was playing really good hockey. Goes down, not going to be able to participate. And then I'll throw this name out there as well, because I think a lot of people just brush it off saying, oh, all right, Nola Chari was playing really good hockey. And I think the most important part is when you lose this amount of talent at the forward position, it's what happens behind them. Because you can say next man up, but it's not going to be the same. And if it is, then hey, listen, you got great depth. And the Penguins, I think, have more depth this year than they have in years past at the forward position. But the bottom six before this slew of injuries was Tommy Novak, Ben Kindle, and Philip Hollander. All three of those guys have played and succeeded in the top six this season. Ben Kindle is up on the first line right now, playing good hockey. Tommy Novak playing really good on the second line. And Philip Hollander, as we mentioned, was playing with Crosby and playing very well, in my opinion. I was ready to come on here and have a conversation about, man, you got to give credit. Philip Hollander looks like he fits next to Crosby. Maybe not as much as Kindle has, just because the hockey IQ on Kindle is at another level at 18 years old. But he looked like a solution in the top six. Was never going to get to the level of Rickard Rakell because he's established 30-plus goal scorer. But Hollander was playing well. He was fitting in well on that top line. That was your third line before. None of them are in the bottom six now. The fourth line was Lizotte, Achari, and Dewar. We'll talk about Lizotte and Dewar a little bit later. But that fourth line, while they weren't lighting the world on fire, they were playing well enough to get over 10 minutes a night, which is what Dan Muse wants. He doesn't want to overwork the old guys at the top of the lineup. He wants to evenly distribute the time between these lines. If you look at what the bottom six is now, you can't really do that and expect the same results. Una Koppinen, Kevin Hayes, and Ville Koivunen are your third line. Koivunen's played very well the last two games. I think there's been a switch that flipped for Ville Koivunen. I think he is knocking on the door of his first NHL goal, and I think he's a guy that once one goes in, you're going to start to see a waterfall effect. It's going to come in bunches for Ville Koivunen. But the problem is right now, I don't see Una Koppinen. I don't see this version of Kevin Hayes in this system as a third-line player. Yeah, they can play decently, but it's definitely, as of right now, feeling like a step down from a Novak, Kindle, Hollander third line. So you're hoping these guys can step up. I mean, you look at the fourth line, it's Lizotte, Dewar, and you throw in Danton Heinen, who got off to a tremendous start at the AHL's Wilkes-Barre Penguins, and sometimes that leads and translates into success at the NHL level. We're seeing it with Ryan Graves. Just hasn't happened with Danton Heinen. He's got a couple of scoring opportunities, but he's not capitalizing the same way he was able to at that AHL level. Like I mentioned, this is not to say the Penguins were fugazi in the first month. It's not to say that October was an aberration, because they're playing well still. But I think these injuries are taking a toll when it comes to clutch time, when it comes to being able to put them over the top, because they've been losing in these close games that they were walking away from with 2 points in the first month of the season. So I think there's good news in it, though. First and foremost, it is the Sweden trip. They play 2 games in the next 11 days, so it's a very good time to heal up. You should not be getting injured very much over the next 11 days. You hope for health, knock on wood, that everybody goes to Sweden, they win 2 games, they stay healthy, and they get 2 weeks almost where they're able to heal up and not play a lot of hockey. And secondly, an overarching thing that you can say I'm overreacting, you can say I'm trying to be Mr. Brightside all the time, but the ceiling may be higher than we thought. Because right now they're competing with some of the better teams in the league, the LA Kings, the New Jersey Devils. They're playing 1-goal separated hockey with this very much injured lineup. If they are at or become close to full health at any point in this season for an extended period, they're already top 3 in the Metro, but you have to believe that that could actually sustain, that they can make a run potentially at the number one spot, up against those Devils, up against Carolina. And as of right now, I think the ceiling has changed to where you're not just looking at them and saying, oh, the ceiling is making the playoffs and then, bowing out respectfully because that's not where the Penguins are at in their organization. I think the ceiling has changed at full health to being a top 3 team in the Metro and a hard out in the playoffs. I'm not going to go as far as to say, hey, this is a team that you should expect to make a deep run. I've said on multiple occasions throughout the course of the last 8 seasons that until I see them win a playoff series, I'm not going to predict them to go on a long run. I need to see them get over the hump. I need to see them, for the first time since 2018, get to the second round before I say anything beyond can compete in the first round. But I think if you're a Penguins fan, you have to still feel pretty good, even in the face of a 4 out of 5 loss slump, that this team is doing the right things, that this team has the formula, has the coaching, has the horses to get the job done in 2025-26. The biggest thing in front of them is getting healthy and making sure your goaltending stands up the way it has. The Penguins have had very good goaltending, and I'll add Sergei Murashov to the list. Tristan Jarry, Artur Shilovs, and Sergei Murashov have all played well at the NHL level. If those two things happen, it's hard to not see this team as competitive as the season goes on. Now, I mentioned that Sergei Murashov was the biggest storyline on the ice from this weekend. Thing is, there was a pretty big storyline off the ice as well, and that is one Penguin superstar deciding that he wanted to call out former Penguins head coach, 2-time Stanley Cup champion, and someone who is very well liked by some in that locker room, Mike Sullivan, current head coach of the New York Rangers. Now, the Penguins, outside of the 4 losses in 5 games that we just talked about for 16 minutes, have enjoyed a fresh start under new head coach Dan Muse. They're 9-5-3 on the season, 3rd place in the Metro Division, and I think we can all agree that the energy in general feels different in a good way. Erik Karlsson himself has felt it, and when he was speaking with Josh Yohe of The Athletic at Prudential Center following the game on Saturday, he had a quote that was pretty illuminating. And I urge you to read the entire article over at The Athletic. We will link it in the description below because it's, again, a good piece from Josh, just kind of illustrating how this team feels despite the fact that they've lost a couple games, despite the fact that they had just fallen to a Metropolitan Division rival at the moment of those quotes. But Erik Karlsson said one thing that's made its rounds on social media and pretty illuminating if you think about it. Saying, quote, "We have good individual players, and now we're starting to feel good as a team. The roles are starting to slot in, and you know what's expected of you." Now, here's the part that everybody has ran with. You do the things you're good at, and not the things that someone tells you to do that you can't do. That one felt a little directed, Erik. I think we see where you're going with that. I think we're picking up what you're putting down. Erik Karlsson and Mike Sullivan, it's well known, they weren't best friends. They weren't, Mike Sullivan and Sidney Crosby. They weren't Mike Sullivan and, for the most part, Evgeny Malkin. We knew there was a little bit of tension between the star defenseman, the 3-time Norris Trophy winner, and the eventual Hockey Hall of Fame head coach. So this doesn't come as much of a shock. I mean, you look at the way that Erik Karlsson has played, and I think his performance kind of speaks the same thing that he put into that article. He put into that quote. His performance says the exact same thing. He didn't have to say anything. It was kind of unspoken that Erik Karlsson looks more like a guy who won the Norris Trophy in 2023. He's playing with more freedom. He's getting better results, not just in the offensive zone, but he's getting better results in the defensive zone as well. I mean, look no further than the overtime against New Jersey on Saturday. How many great plays was he able to make to snuff out the New Jersey Devils attack? Now, he's never going to be perfect in the defensive zone. He is going to make mistakes. He is going to have mental lapses. He did get walked on Sunday by Kevin Fiala. That's going to happen because it's Erik Karlsson. He is not a shutdown defenseman. He has never been confused with Nick Lidstrom. Let's just put it that way. But he's playing at a much higher level. He's playing at the highest level that we have seen since he came over a couple of years ago. And a lot of that can be attributed to the fresh start when it comes to the guys behind the bench. I think you have to give some credit where credit is due. Parker Wotherspoon has helped allow him be that type of player because Wotherspoon has had a really good start to the season. But I think a lot of it is he is playing his game. And while, yes, we all know Karlsson and Sully weren't the best of friends. And yes, while the Penguins are off to a surprisingly hot start and the New York Rangers are, well, they're sitting in it a little bit right now. It might be fun to pile on, but I find it interesting that he felt the need to say something because I think we all saw it. We all have seen it over the past month and a half, the past 6 weeks. This is a different Erik Karlsson. I mean, if you listen to, Dan Potash, if you listen to Josh Getzov, if you listen to Josh Yohe, they've been telling us since the beginning of training camp, Erik Karlsson looks good, right? Well, everybody was getting excited and talking about Harrison Brunick and saying, man, he might be the best defenseman in training camp. It always came with the caveat, but Erik Karlsson's right there. Like, Erik Karlsson is also having a really good training camp. He's been very good since the second that camp opened back in September. He's carried that over into the season. He's had a really good start. And now he's peacocking a little bit here. He's making sure that if we didn't see it, which I think we all did, but if we haven't seen it, then this is a different version of him. And there is one big factor that changed between last year and this year. So it is interesting. And I'm not going to say that it's the one thing that was holding the Penguins back because I think there were multiple things that held the Penguins back. And it's the reason that they've missed the playoffs the last 3 seasons. I'm not putting it all on Mike Sullivan, but that effect seemingly is being felt throughout the lineup and not just with Erik Karlsson. I think most drastically it's been felt with Erik Karlsson. But look at the way Ryan Graves has played since coming back from Wilkes-Barre. He's had 3, albeit only 3, but 3 very solid performances on the third D pair. Look at Evgeny Malkin, right? That's somebody that for years we have heard that Mike Sullivan is trying to get him to play a little bit of a smarter brand of hockey, that he didn't want to take away what made him special, but he did want him to play in system a little bit better. You bring in Dan Muse, you're getting the best version of Evgeny Malkin. The best start for a 39-plus-year-old since Gordie Howe is Evgeny Malkin. You look at a guy like Ryan Shea, who showed glimpses of being able to play up in the lineup the last couple of seasons, but he's really been stout alongside Chris Letang, which is a hard thing to do at times. And Chris, this weekend was one of those times. But Ryan Shea is flourishing under Dan Muse. So it's not just Erik Karlsson, and it's not that it's something that we all scratched our head and said, man, I wonder what's changed. We all kind of see the writing on the wall. We all kind of understand what's changed. But Erik Karlsson, man, it's the one thing about him, and it's the one thing we all kind of love about him. He will speak his mind, and he did so to Josh Yohe of The Athletic. Like I mentioned, go and check out Josh's full article. There's quotes in there about Sidney Crosby, or from Sidney Crosby, about how it's different this year, how there's belief in this team. And it's a really, really stellar piece of journalism from Josh Yohe. So again, click the link in the comments, read that, in the description, and give that a read. I want to close off this episode by giving some credit where credit is due, because that's, I think I say that a little too much. I should probably come up with a better phrase for that. But there's an unlikely duo that, despite the fact that the Penguins forwards are very injured, is still propping up the bottom 6, is still leading the way for the bottom 6, because the top 6, listen, they'll be fine as long as 87 and 71 are healthy. You're usually in a pretty good spot. I'll throw 17 in there as well. But the bottom 6 dealing with all these injuries, Kevin Hayes trying to get his feet underneath him, Juna Koppinen trying to, establish himself. And again, he's playing better than we've seen in previous opportunities in Pittsburgh. He is. Sunday was a game where you looked at it and you said, all right, second half of a back-to-back, starting to look like his first opportunity, but overall, I think he's looked a little bit faster. He's looked like he's kind of up to speed at the NHL level for the most part in this call-up, but it's still somebody who, best case scenario, you have in Wilkes. It stinks to say that because this kid has worked his butt off to get in this opportunity. But if you're fully healthy, Unicompetent is not your third line left wing. It's just a fact of life. But we've already talked injuries, so I'll leave that alone. I wanted to mention these two guys because I think they've stepped up, and I think that it also highlights something else that I like to do. Connor Dewar and Blake Lizotte have been very good this season. It's part of the reason that Noel Acciari was off to such a good start and why it is a blow to lose Noel Acciari to an injury. I mean, this duo is just adept at creating havoc. If you're a fourth line, that's what you want. Just let them wreck shop in the offensive zone. That's what they've done. Both are stellar on the penalty kill, which makes it even better because the Penguins' penalty kill, despite giving up a goal on Sunday, has been tremendous over the past week and a half, 2 weeks. They're top 10 in the National Hockey League, and these two guys are a huge reason as to why. I mean, Connor Dewar had himself a coming out party in Pittsburgh against the Capitals. The game that he had in that one, scoring the game-winning goal, or not the game-winning goal, the empty net goal in that one, but almost scoring 3 or 4 times before that. I mean, he has had a great start to his career in Pittsburgh, not just this season, because he was really good at the tail end of last season as well. And I don't make this comparison lightly, because when this player came to Pittsburgh, a lot of people said, man, why are you going to pay that much for a fourth liner? Man, why are you going to give that type of contract, that long of a contract, to a fourth liner? And very quickly, people kind of understood the assignment. They knew, oh, okay, that's why. Okay. And it ended up being that everybody was very upset that that's the player that ended up getting drafted or selected in the Seattle Kraken expansion. That's Brandon Tanev. The way these two have been playing this season, it's like having two Brandon Tanevs on the fourth line. That's not a bad thing. Not a bad thing whatsoever. And now specifically, I do want to highlight Connor Dewar, because when you look at the grand scheme of things, the Penguins, a lot of people can say, hey, the rebuild's over. They're back. I hope you're right. I do. And I said at the beginning of this show, I think the ceiling is a little bit higher as of right now. Like, it's going to have to be proven to me that it's not at this point. But Connor Dewar, in the midst of what is still considered a rebuild, until they start getting aggressive off the ice, I would say you're still in a rebuild. You're in a rebuild, but enjoying a surprisingly good start. Connor Dewar is the type of player, and that was the type of trade that expedites a rebuild. Because if you think back to how the Penguins acquired Connor Dewar, they were just being a broker for a deal between Toronto and Boston. Toronto wanted Brandon Carlo. Boston wanted assets, and they needed to make the money work. How did they make the money work? Well, the Penguins came in and said, we'll toss around a draft pick and we'll take Connor Timmins and we'll take Connor Dewar. That way we make the money work. You guys can do your whole Brandon Carlo thing, and we'll get these two players who are both playing at the NHL level, but haven't really found a role in Toronto. They turned around and traded Timmins in the offseason for Connor Clifton, who is okay. Physical, brings that. He's okay. But they turn it into Connor Clifton, who, in my opinion, is pretty much just a more physical version of Connor Timmins, but also a second-round pick. In Peyton Kettles. It turned into Peyton Kettles. Big defenseman, nice piece for your prospect system. But it also brought you Connor Dewar. And he has 8 goals, 13 points in 34 games between last year and this year as a Penguin. That's a 19-goal pace for a fourth-line winger. Add on the fact that he plays penalty kill at a very good level. Add on the fact that he is dynamic on the forecheck. He creates havoc in the offensive zone, and he complements a piece you already had in Blake Lizotte very well. I think I've heard maybe Phil Bourque call Blake Lizotte a water bug, because it just looks like he's just going 100 miles an hour and just gliding over everything. That's exactly what Connor Dewar is too. So once again, I'll say this, and I truly, truly believe it. Trades like that expedite a rebuild. And if the Penguins are able to hold on, are able to build off of this start and become a playoff team in 2026, it's because, in part, of moves like that by Kyle Dubas. It is the epitome of what he has preached ever since the day he traded Jake Gensel. Ever since the focus shifted from I was hired and the front office wants a winner to I was hired, the front office wanted a winner, we tried that, now we're doing my plan. We're going to try to help for today, but we are going to look towards the future. We are going to build for tomorrow and bring that next generation of Penguins and winning in Pittsburgh to the forefront. That trade did exactly what Kyle Dubas has been preaching for the past 18 months. You got a piece for now that's going to help Sidney Crosby and this current iteration of the Penguins win hockey games. That's Connor Dewar. And you get a piece for later. That's Peyton Kettles. So all credit to Kyle Dubas. It's a small piece. It's a small trade that in the grand scheme of things, if you look at where they're at right now, a lot of people are going to be like, oh, Connor Dewar, that's a nice piece. But you look at it a little bit closer and you realize, man, I don't want to say masterclass, but as of right now, it's looking like another Dubas masterclass because you have to see how Peyton Kettles turns out to see whether or not it's a complete grand slam of a trade. But I'll say it's a home run bringing in Connor Dewar for this iteration of the Penguins because even the best Stanley Cup teams need good fourth lines. You look at 2016, who was on the fourth line? You needed Tommy Kuhnhackl. You needed Eric Fehr. You needed Scott Wilson. You needed those pieces that, you know, in the grand scheme of things, only freaks like me are going to remember. But you need those guys to win those cups. I think Connor Dewar is a piece that helps you be a winning hockey team. And the fact that he's producing offensively at the level that he has is just a bonus. It's just a bonus. So I want to give credit to Kyle Dubas, but you got to give credit to the guys that are doing it on the ice. You got to give credit to Connor Dewar, who's come in and really carved out a role in Pittsburgh. You got to give credit to Blake Lizotte, who was up and down last season, but has been overall, I think, a very good addition for the past year and a month for the Penguins. And you just got to hope that they're able to continue to build off of what they're doing. And maybe you got to hope that when Noel Acciari comes back, he's able to pick up where he left off and they create that fourth line that is able to withstand playing 11, 12 minutes a night, because that is a huge advantage for the Penguins, a team that is built off the backs of aging superstars. If you're able to put your fourth line out there for 12 minutes and get the better of the exchange when they're out there, it helps your season outlook tremendously. It reduces the wear and tear on those guys, and it highlights some players that, listen, if things don't go well, could potentially be trade fodder at the trade deadline. But let's not talk about that now. And let's not put it that way. God, that's an awful term. I should never use that again. Trade fodder. These are human beings. As trade pieces to potentially, that would potentially be, as I stumble through the end of this podcast. Sorry about that. Trade pieces that could potentially be very valuable pieces for teams that are going for a Stanley Cup. But that's not where we're at right now. We're at a spot where the Penguins, despite struggling a little bit, despite slumping a little bit going into Sweden, are a good team. And let's hope they're able to continue to that. It's going to be an interesting week as the no hockey games until Friday. And even then, it's a Friday at 2 p.m. and then a Sunday game at 9 a.m. So a very strange week if you're in the Penguins fan base. We'll keep you up to date on everything that happens. If there's any breaking news out of Sweden, we'll be here talking about the breaking news out of Sweden. If there's any more comments from Erik Karlsson, then we will be on here talking about comments of Erik Karlsson. But at the end of the day, the Penguins, I think, are heading in the right direction. And you got to give credit to a lot of people. Dan Muse, Kyle Dubas, Sidney Crosby for continuing to be great at the sport of hockey. But we sit here today, November 10th, and this team is entertaining. Even if they start to struggle like they have over the past week, 4 of their last 5, they are always going to be entertaining. And for that, I'm extremely grateful. But that's going to do it for this episode of The Tip of the Ice-Burgh. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this one. Remember, you can find us on YouTube at Tip of the Ice-Burgh and full episodes at Nick Belsky on YouTube, or you can find us on audio platforms anywhere you get your podcasts. That's going to do it for this one. We'll see you guys next time.